Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
All right, so, oh man, it just never seems to end around here.
Hey, man.
Thank you, sir.
Of course.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to be back.
Yeah. So, what the hell's new? How about starting off a podcast with open-ended questions?
That's a loaded
What the hell's
question.
new?
That's a loaded question, man.
Just got back from Vegas, right?
I did. A quick 36-hour trip with a 14-hour flight delay. Yeah, American Airlines did not make me happy. We connected through Charlotte. We leave Pittsburgh at 5 a.m., I think, last Friday. Get to Charlotte like late, so our plane's already boarding, and we're in row one seats, like the first seats, and all these people start coming off the plane when we get there.
Oh, great!
I'm like, what the fuck's happening? Well, something's wrong with the plane. We're delayed an hour, then another hour, and then all of a sudden, plane's broke. We need to take it to the hangar and find a new plane. Now there were all these other flights leaving out of Charlotte to Vegas. The rest of the day, they were all full. We ended up getting on the plane at 9:15 at night.
For what, a 2-day jaunt?
Yeah, we were supposed to be there Thursday, but then we changed that because Melina's open house was Thursday night, so we didn't want to miss that. So we figured if we get there we leave 7 a.m. Friday morning, we're there 9 a.m. Vegas time. We have 2 full days. Well, plans changed, and we had about 36 hours of fun, and there's about 4 hours of that I don't really remember apparently, but we had a good time. But I'm really itching to go back because I didn't really.
You like it there, huh?
I do. I've been going there. I mean, we used to go every year when I graduated law school for probably till we all started getting older and having kids. But I've probably been there about 20 sometimes. It's not because I'm a crazy partier. It's not because I'm a crazy gambler. I like to do a little bit of everything. And Vegas allows you to do that. If you want to have a crazy weekend, you can. If you want to go to shows, if you want to eat good food, if you want to just gamble. I mean, there's everything you can do. And I don't know, there's just something about the city, the energy of the city does it for me.
It never sleeps, right?
Yeah, you don't know what time it is. And it's just cool because
you don't know what time it is.
You don't. You really don't. Like, I don't know what time it is when I'm there usually. And I just like it because, one, I'm an extrovert and a people person.
Right.
So we were walking down the street and I just started talking to some woman, her Laura, like yelling at me basically something. She's like, "You guys are from the East Coast, right?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, we are." And I just made friends with this woman apparently. But like, that's me. Like, I like to just talk to people, meet new people. In Vegas, like, everybody's friendly. Yeah. That's what I like about it. It's just a cool city. You need to go there, man. You've never been. You said.
No, I haven't. I mean, I've been to Reno and
I've been
there. To Lake Tahoe, and Lake Tahoe's in what, Nevada? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've done all that. I've been around the city. I've driven
Lake Tahoe
through.
in Nevada, or is it California? I've been to Lake Tahoe, and it's beautiful. I was there
Very
for
expensive.
Entrepreneur
Wonderful
Mastermind.
Place.
Beautiful.
Cool.
That's where I decided. That's kind of what finished my book when I went to that retreat.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a retreat.
It's definitely beautiful there.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple things.
Yeah, let's do it.
First and foremost, we sat here on this show many times throughout this long pandemic. And there was a lot of hope throughout the whole thing that we were cresting, we're getting over.
Yeah.
Do you think right now people as a whole, society as a whole, the average folks, do you think there's fatigue now in that we're kind of living with COVID? And I say that like COVID's just kind of moved in. It's found a corner of the bedroom to kind of hang out, and just we live with it daily like it's an adopted stepchild.
So great question. And I think in my opinion, I think there's 3 segments of the population right now. I think there are the middle, the 40% of us that, COVID's here. It is what it is. Like, fuck it. Like, you're vaccinated, you're not vaccinated, you're healthy. It's just kind of is what it is. There's 30% over here that are just like, fuck COVID. It doesn't exist. It never existed. Every conspiracy theory in the world. The other 30% are like, this is the worst thing ever. People are going to die. If you don't wear a mask and you don't get vaccinated, you're going to kill all the vaccinated people. I think the country's split in thirds right now. That's how I see it. Maybe the percentages are off.
Okay.
But I feel like a lot of us have just gotten like, it's here. It is what it is. Like at this point in time, it's like you make your own choices. You live the life you want to live. And I've learned over the pandemic that, I pick and choose the things I want to do, and I pick and choose the people I want to hang out with. And it's
right.
Nothing has really significantly changed in my life because I still see the same people. I still work the same way. I still have the same circle. But there are things that I may or may not do in the future because of certain things in society right now.
So help me understand something.
Sure.
It might be more on the psychology of the country or the people, but I don't think it's very difficult. I don't find it very difficult to make a rational decision based on what I see.
Okay.
So the disease came, it was scary and frightening. I realized that the information, while a lot of people were doing their best to disseminate it early, it was going to be confusing.
Sure.
But I've had enough time to look at it through this process, and I'm able to pick and choose what would be best for me and hopefully my family and people around me. Why is it so hard to, live with this and still go out and be productive and be kind and do the things you want to do and engage people appropriately and with respect and dignity, but at the same time live, I guess I should say, kind of without this ongoing weight of fear? Like, I don't find it hard to do that. I mean, we're not like in a draconian circumstance where everybody has an oxygen mask on. We're walking around and you can see the gas floating through the streets. We're not there.
No, not at all.
But I'm also not an idiot. I know that millions of people throughout the world have died. It is a virus. I get it. I don't know why so many of us, whether it's Americans, people in Pennsylvania, whatever, can't disseminate what they're seeing and then just simply figure out a way to normalize your life the best you can with respect and just get on with it.
Yeah.
Why is it so hard? Why? For the average person to just see and react in a decent way.
Well, because I think fear is driving the bus right now, right? And a lot of people, I think that's a big part of the problem, right? People have been in this state of fear or panic or flux and we're just divided as a country, right? So it's just causing, people are acting and reacting very emotionally, right? Logic has taken the back seat. Yeah, I think so. I think here the problem I see with what is going on in the world and kind of this, the story has changed so much over time that I think it's made people's brains just go to shit. And so people are just reacting off of pure emotion and fear. Because if you look at like, you watch these montages of politicians, and it's like, we can't force people to vaccinate. We cannot do that as a federal government. No, we would never do that. No, we would never do that. No, we would never do that. Now we're going to do it. Now it's like, okay, well, what the fuck? Like, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. So I think people they've just picked the side. They've picked their position, and the fear and the emotion is dictating it for the majority of those types of people.
Right.
People like you and I look at logic, right? Like, I
try to.
I believe in, it should be everybody's choice what they want to do. I don't believe that the government should force anybody to do anything. We can't have multiple arguments on, my body, my choice, body autonomy, but when it comes to a vaccine that's experimental and it hasn't been approved yet necessarily, that we're forcing people to take it. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
There's a lot of hypocrisy there. I wanted to get at that, so you went right to it. Yeah.
Like, that to me is like, and I believe, look, if the vaccine is safe and it works, that's great. Like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer in the least. I believe in health and wellness, and we should be talking about that as well as the vaccine. But we can't make these arguments of, you can't tell me what to do with my body only in limited circumstances. To me, that just doesn't make logical sense. And whether that's a popular opinion or not,
I think that's interesting, and I find it fascinating because it's solely politically driven.
Sure, absolutely,
100%. Yes. I mean, the abortion issue, and irregardless of the whole Texas thing and the Supreme Court and all that, set all that aside. On the face of it, how many decades now has the mantra been "my body, my choice"? Yeah. And I was an anti-abortion person growing up. I got that through Catholicism. And I have moderated by a long stretch my viewpoint as I became an adult, where I actually now, I don't want to ever say I'm pro-abortion or even pro-choice, but in reality, I figure it's not my business. Yeah, exactly. Yes. It may or may be a moral decision for somebody. Yes. But I don't feel, especially as a man, that I even have a say in the matter. Yes. I believe that. But at the same time, the most avid proponents of pro-choice some of those are the most avid proponents of mandates for vaccines. That's the problem. How does that mesh? Like, how does that jive with these highly principled people.
It doesn't. And
it can't.
And it's pure power anymore. I mean, I look at it again, because again, I try and be logical. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I have clients that are doctors. I have clients that talk about this stuff and understand. So I'm a curious person, right? I like to educate myself. Not saying that I know everything, but it's so interesting to me that when you start digging layers deeper, you realize that, in my opinion, the majority of this is just about money. Like, let's be realistic. Like, think about, and again, this is my knowledge. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. This is my understanding. You cannot have emergency use authorization from the FDA if there is an alternative treatment available, right? That's how the world. So to get all these vaccines, to get that emergency use authorization for these pharmaceutical companies to make billions and billions of dollars in a couple quarters, there could not be an alternative treatment. So when they talk about ivermectin and hydrochloroquine and monoclonal antibodies, all the stuff that Joe Rogan talked about, if that was mainstream, these vaccines couldn't have happened because there was an alternative treatment. So that's, in my mind, like, that's the shit that's fucked up, because we're playing with people's lives. We're playing with people's health. And I'd be fine with vaccines. I'd also be fine if they talk truthfully about the other things that are out there. Like that whole, like, I watched the Joe Rogan episode, not saying that he's an expert, but he got to the point where he was like, I should sue CNN because they basically said he was taking horse medication when ivermectin's been one of the most prescribed drugs over the years, and it worked. It's like, we should have all the facts. As Americans, we should have all the facts. If you want to get vaccinated, that's totally your choice. If you don't, that's totally your choice. And the logic where they say now that we have to get the unvaccinated vaccinated to protect the vaccinated, like, whether you want to take one side of the position or not, think about that from a logical perspective. Now, I mean, really think about it. And I'm trying to think of a good a good analogy, and I can't without being vulgar, but that's the most ridiculous. I mean, like, I saw someone shared something with me. It says, I hate this allergy season. Like, I've taken my Claritin, but it's not working because no one else has taken theirs. And I'm like, that's the logic we're dealing with right now. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, and it's such a this is the first time in our generation, I think, there's been such a social dilemma that immediately there is a point where people can use to judge other humans in a very vicious way.
That's exactly what's happening.
Way more than, I mean, because if you a person that stayed away from politics in a social setting most of your life, you were not really ever engaged in any vitriol. You could avoid it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, based upon the decision you are forced to make, you now are going to be lumped on one side or the other, where the other side of the opinion, whatever it is really upsetting you.
Yeah, right. That's what blows my mind. Like, I didn't get into politics, like, understanding until college, right? Yeah. And I remember I just kind of knew what I believed, and I'm like, I think I'm a Republican, and it made sense because a lot of my fraternity brothers were Republicans, and I wasn't really involved, but other of my fraternity brothers were Democrats, and we would actually have discussions and, like, talk, not argue.
Of course.
And even into when I was in law school and even the early 2000s, but it's like, we've got to a point now where, like, we can't have rational debate because people have picked the side and they're not willing to look at it from another perspective.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Sure. Why do you think that is? Like, how did we get here where the so much of the population is so close-minded?
Well, I think, again, from my perspective, I think, one, it's laziness. People don't want to take the time or the effort to look at it.
Intellectual laziness.
Intellectual laziness. I think, two, it's the fear of being wrong, the fear of not belonging. Because think about it. If you believed one thing and you were on that team, and that gets called into question, and you're like, wait a minute, maybe I was wrong. Then you feel like you don't belong on that team anymore. Then where do you belong? And I think people in America, in society, we want this sense of belonging, right? We want to feel like we're part of something. We're part of a tribe. And I think individualism has kind of taken, that's the minority now. People want to feel part of something, and be it a political philosophy,
comfort in numbers, right?
Exactly, comfort in numbers. So if if their side or their philosophy or intellectual philosophy gets called into question, I think it calls into question everything about the person, and that's scary. And that comes down to, people need to start learning how to self-reflect again and try and understand that where the problems are actually coming from. And I just think that people have lost the ability to rationally think in this country. Not everybody, but I think because the media feeds so much bullshit, both sides. Like, the sky can be blue, and CNN will say it's purple, and Fox will say it's green. And I'm like, both of you are fucking wrong. It's blue. And it's like, well, how do you define blue? Like, it's the blue versus gold dress debate. Like, well, do you perceive it as blue? And it's just, and so people are just picking what one side is saying and saying, I believe that, instead of deducing their own thoughts or their own opinions. And that's what I wish people would get back to, because that's how we solve problems. That's what the country was founded on, right? Discussion, debate, not vitriol, not anger, not animosity towards one another. I respect everybody's opinion. Like, my good friend from college, one of my best friends, he came to an event. I hadn't seen him in a while, and we were talking, and we have very different political views, but there wasn't any anger. I didn't have any animosity towards him. I don't think he had any animosity toward me. It was just, we have different viewpoints, and we can agree to disagree. And I think that's how we can solve more problems in this country, but people don't like to do that because it's hard. It's uncomfortable.
I think too, another thing's happening socially. I think there's going to be an incredible opportunity for younger entrepreneurs in the current climate we're in.
Sure.
That if they can somehow not give themselves away to one philosophy or the other, they can create their own independent thinking and take from both sides. They will be at an advantage intellectually,
100%,
from a negotiation standpoint, from just in the way they live and maneuver their life. Because we're getting dumber, society as a whole, because we're not thinking for ourselves. We're okay with groupthink on all the quote unquote major events in our life.
We have platforms that tell us how to think. Like, when you think about it, right? Like, when I was in law school, like, that's what, MySpace and Facebook were kind of there, but there was no way to understand what a group of society thought. Other than discussing with people what they think. Now I can literally go onto Facebook and figure out what half of my friends list thinks in 30 seconds. Or what a group of people think. So you're right. Like, it's that ability to think. Technology has been amazing for society in general, right? It's advanced so many things. It's also made us a lot stupider.
Right. It's almost, and it's dangerous. It's very dangerous, because if the right leader for this kind of corruption eventually comes, and it may be a generation or two away, maybe, but if the right leader comes who can manipulate the narrative in a really unique way with power and strength, if we keep dumbing ourselves down on the decisioning and rational thinking, we will be susceptible to being dominated. I believe that's the trend that my uneducated opinion, that's where we're headed.
It's happening already.
People aren't thinking for themselves.
I mean, it's happening. At all. No, it's. I mean, I think I said the last time we were on with Mike, the whole point of the Twitter ban of Trump, or the Facebook ban of like, it's not about banning Trump. It's about these social media platforms, by doing that, have said, we know better than society what you should believe.
No question.
That's the scary part that I don't think people understand. I don't care if they ban Trump or Biden. I could give two fucks about that.
Right.
It's the fact that they can ban anyone from a platform, because, and you saw, I think it was yesterday, YouTube said they banned all anti-vax information from. That. But again, so now, okay, so people now are only supposed to listen to stuff about the benefits of vaccines.
That on the premise is the most un-American thing imaginable.
Correct.
I mean, it doesn't matter the opinion. The opinion, I would think that public opinion will determine the direction of the country. If someone has a viewpoint that's only probably represents 1/1000th of 1% of the population. They still have the quote unquote right through freedom to be able to express that.
Correct.
You can't. You have to give them their due. We talked about it many times.
Yeah.
We don't elevate their importance.
Correct. Yes.
The society will determine that.
Yes, exactly.
We don't want to elevate their importance, but at the same time, they can't be shut down just because they're such a, perceived to be an aggressive tone. I mean, think about it. If Hitler was alive today, and causing all these problems in Europe or someone like that, we would take care of it militarily. But at the same time, should they have the voice to spew that stuff? I think if you believe in rights and free speech, you almost have to give them.
Sure.
Yeah. You have to give them the mouthpiece. And as soon as you start doing that, then the real power lies with the decision makers, not the elected official.
Exactly right.
Right?
I mean,
whether you love them or hate them, that's the reality of the circumstance,
that's
right?
Exactly. I mean, these tech companies have this shield from liability under that. I think it's Section 204, because they say we're not a content editor. We're just a platform. But now they're editing the content. They're removing. So Congress needs to act and change that, because again, people should be able to make their own decisions based upon the information. And if anybody out there says, well, they should ban that stuff, then you're basically saying that half of America isn't smart enough to figure it out or to make their own decisions. And that's just bullshit, regardless of the side you sit on. And that's also the scary part of this, because people just don't. And to me, I hate to say this, but it's like COVID has been such a distraction to what's really happening. Like, the rights that are being taken away, the fact that these social media companies can determine what we should and shouldn't believe by removing things from the platform under the guise of anti-vax or COVID. Where do they draw the line? Like, what if they say, well, we don't believe conservative values matter anymore, so we're going to remove all conservative or liberal values, or the Black Lives Matter movement? Like, what happens when they start saying, and they get past the vax, anti-vax, and move into the next social dilemma and say, we believe this is the right side, so we're going to remove all the information on the other side. That's scary.
This is what I hope doesn't happen. I think what we're looking at here is a title, because of the ineptitude of Biden and the administration, and without a doubt, the majority in both houses right now, the Democrat majority is so fractured because the Democratic Party is a very fractured party on the face of it. All of this is a cataclysm leading us to, I believe, a conservative change, either in this next 2 years or definitely in the 4 years.
Yeah.
What I don't want to have happen is the conservatives either split the Congress or they gain control. I don't want them to enact the same vengeance on the liberal voice.
Right.
That some of the liberal, powers that be are doing on the conservatives now. You can't fight tit with tat. I want them to take power and show the rest of America how it's supposed to be done.
Yes. And
how the other group failed.
Yes.
That would be leadership to me.
Absolutely.
Not vengeful tit for tat. And I'm afraid that might happen.
Well, and you're 100% right. And I think a younger generation of politicians need to step into the limelight and start doing things in a bipartisan way. That's the only way this country rights itself, because right now it is so fractured, from both sides and within each party, right? I mean, you have far right, far left, middle right, middle left, and it's very fractured. I mean, look what's happening on the Democrats. They control everything, and they can't get the infrastructure bill passed.
Well, that party eats their own, and I've said that forever. That's been, they have more. They've always had more electorate. They've always had more registered voters than Republicans, but they were so fractured with so many splinter groups that working in cohesion has always been the biggest problem with the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
In terms of, and they had the House forever. I mean, Tip O'Neill was part of that whole thing. I mean, they had the House. They were the House of the people, and the majority of people were Democrat. They had it. But eventually, when the fractures come, and again, they're the House. They are the party of spending. You look back at inflation spikes, government programs and so forth. They're usually attached when they were in control. It is what it is. But whether you dig it or you don't, doesn't matter. That's the facts as you look back historically.
Absolutely.
I just think right now that we're headed toward a switch, that's how politics is, but it may be a big conservative wave, and I just don't want the conservatives to attack liberal voices and liberal entities because two wrongs in this instance do not make a right.
No, I agree, and I think there are very intelligent people on the liberal side of things that have really good ideas. I think there's good ideas on both sides.
No question.
And I think where we get into this problem is you have like the AOCs of the world who wears the tax the rich dress to the Met Gala, which is hypocritical, right? Yeah. All these people are in masks, but none of the celebrities are, and you're in an $80,000 dress.
Yeah, it's a cartoon. She's a cartoon.
But she has a loud voice in the party, and that's the problem, right? You have these people on both sides that have these ridiculously loud voices.
They're playing to envy. They're playing to human envy.
That's exactly right.
And where, envy and lust for the things that other people have that you don't, regardless of how they obtain them. And when we play to that common, you play to hate or you play to envy as a politician, you're dealing at the dirtiest of levels.
Absolutely.
And you can say it's on the behest. I'm working on behest of the impoverished, and you're not.
No,
you're working at the core human traits that cause disruption and consternation and hatred. When you work at that core level, and if you go down to that level, and everything that comes out of your mouth is that way. Case in point, I am not a fan of the man, and I'm talking about Reverend Al Sharpton. And I wasn't a fan of Al Sharpton because I was around to remember the Tawana Brawley and how he came to be in prominence. And he's just a very liberal, bombastic person.
Yeah.
But there have been times throughout his political career, and even before his political career, where he had been on talk shows. I think he did a left-right show for CNN a couple years ago. The man has within him to be an articulate, even an even-minded, thoughtful person. It was on display.
I agree.
There were moments I said, wow, this is the right here.
Yeah.
This is the Al Sharpton that I think could benefit the country. Yeah. But then you see in those moments what these politicians do. They come out of their skin. They go against what they know they could do because they see an angle, and they go down to the gutter, and they go down and they deal with it, the worst of human depravity, and they tug at the ego and the anger and the hatred, whether it's race, whether it's economy.
It's self-preservation.
I guess. But if you have to build your base that way, or if you have to build like a following that way, the Republicans are just as fucking guilty. And I mean, I can't tell you, 100%. David Duke.
Yeah.
I mean, the Republicans got a lot of history on that side too. Yeah. But they're dealing at those folks deal with the worst levels of human depravity, and it just never ends. It just never ends.
Term limits. And I had a discussion with one of my fraternity brothers, younger than me. He was a state rep here in PA for 10 years. Now he has like a consulting and marketing company. He's doing some video for our firm. Yeah. But he was in my office a couple weeks, and we were just talking because I had aspirations of politics in the past, and we were.
How you feeling about that now?
Don't ask me today. But he gave himself a 10-year term limit.
Okay.
And he was able to actually get things done. And he said the reason why I did that, he said, because because we were talking about one of the local reps in my area, and he's like, yeah, that guy, he's like always worried about his reelection, so he just does what the party tells him to do. And that's what happens with these guys that become career politicians. They're just doing what the machine tells them to do because it's self-preservation. That's how they stay in power. That's how they stay an elected official. He said, I knew I was giving myself 10 years. So I had 10 years. I had 5 terms if I made and got reelected. After year 10, I was done. Okay. So he did a lot of bipartisan bills. He was in the state house. And for some reason it clicked as he was telling me, that makes sense because if you're a state rep, you're getting elected every 2 years. He's like, so the first couple months you're getting adjusted, and then you start running for re-election. He's like, you're campaigning for a year. He's
That's
like,
ridiculous.
And you're just doing what the machine tells you to do.
2-year terms have always been ridiculous to me.
No, and if you had a term limit in Congress and in state houses, then I think you'd get more stuff done because people don't give a shit about re-election. They give a shit about getting things done. And that's the biggest problem I think we have in this country right now. You have the Nancy Pelosi's, the Mitch McConnell's that have been, they're fucking ancient. Like not to sound like an asshole, but
they're a machine. Each of them have their own little machines within the big machine.
But when you hear Nancy Pelosi speak, I'm like, how is she cognitively aware enough to be Speaker of the House. That means if Biden and Harris go, she's running the fucking country. And she can't put a thought together. And that's the scary part. And it's like we have to start looking at this from a holistic perspective in the country, both sides, and say, how do we fix this fucking problem? Because if we don't do something, it's just a perpetual cycle.
There's not enough young people.
That's the problem.
In power positions.
That's absolutely right. But the problem is, it's become so toxic, people don't want to do it.
Well, yeah, you don't want to take a pay cut. I mean, let's be blunt about that.
Yeah, but look at these politicians that make a lot more money when they come out. I mean, think about how Biden's been in.
Are there rules? Let me ask you this question: are there rules, legal rules, that can enable a politician who has some political success to enrich themselves legally? So those opportunities, are they there? How is that done?
In the federal, right? I believe, when you go into, say, Congress, you can't, like in the state house, right? You get paid to be a state rep or a state senator, but you can also have a separate career, right? Like I could go do that and still be a lawyer, have my practice. If I went into like U.S. Congress, I couldn't practice law. I don't believe. I think you just have to do that, and you can make investments in certain sites, but you have to do like things through a blind trust. But I read a lot about the stock market and do a lot of stock investing. And Nancy Pelosi's husband has made ridiculous trades, making millions of dollars right before shit happens. Mm-hmm. Like right before certain things happen that benefit the companies he did call options for or he shorted. Right. And it's like they're all making money in the background.
Yeah.
Whether there's rules in place or not, no one's following it. And that's the problem.
And that's the egregious thing that I have to tell you. I have to laugh because growing up relatively moderate conservative, and still as I sit here today, I'm really solid moderate. I can't even say moderate conservative anymore. But from this viewpoint, it's pretty obvious to me that both sides have stolen everything that isn't nailed down.
Fuck yeah.
One side doesn't talk about it.
Yeah.
The conservatives don't talk about it because they know they're labeled anyways, and they're caught with their hands in a cookie jar. Yeah. The other one lies about not doing it.
Right.
They're both guilty as fuck.
100%.
But one actually is public about being this altruistic, better way of living. And these folks have enriched themselves and become the people they attack publicly.
Yes.
It's mind-numbing to me. The quote, limousine liberal, is there for a reason.
Yeah, right.
It's there for a reason.
Yes.
Do as I say, not as I do. I know better for you than you do.
Yes.
And don't look too close at me, because what I do is none of your business.
I mean, if you ask a Republican,
how can anybody want that?
Well, that's the problem. Like, you ask a Republican if they stole a cookie, they just remain silent. If you ask a Democrat if they stole a cookie, they're like, I didn't steal it, but I'll tell you who did steal it. and that's really what it is. They're both doing it. They're both doing it.
Yeah, it's almost. I mean, I would have more respect for Nancy Pelosi if she stood up and said, "Well, certainly, I have been here for 30 years in Congress, and I've met a lot of people, and I've learned a lot, and through that knowledge, my husband and I have done investing and so forth." Well, of course, we've had a nice life and so forth. I mean, I would have more respect for that. I mean, not incriminate herself, but just be honest about this is my career, and I have a right legally to do what I can do, and but they won't do that. They pretend to be people that they're not, and that's where. And listen, I don't know much about AOC because she doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
What a little I do know is that, peel away all the politics, there might be someone with a lot of energy and might be the right kind of politician for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's so... she's dealing at the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
And I guess...
I'd have more respect for her if she was... She's a capitalist. Like, she sells shirts on her website.
I think we all want to be.
But she acts like she's not. Like, I'd have more respect for her and anyone in that position if they just were truthful. Says, like, I'd like to make fucking money too. I think we should do better things in government and help more people out. And
we can disagree on how to do that.
Yeah, you can't claim to be a socialist but be a capitalist at heart.
Look,
like, it's ridiculous.
Look, Michael Moore, a writer, columnist, whatever it is, a filmmaker,
multimillionaire.
Look up how much he's worth and look up the houses he lives in.
Yeah, exactly.
Regardless of the divorce and all the problems he's had. Bernie Sanders, I like him. The funny part about Bernie is he's probably a pretty likable guy.
Yeah.
I don't think I believe anything that he spews ever. Never have.
No.
But he flies first class.
Yes.
I know this personally.
Yes.
I'm not going to go in how I know,
Yeah.
but you can find out for yourself. Look on the web. There's photos of him in there.
Look at the car he drives.
I'm saying the optics, even if he is a great socialist at heart and he's for the people at heart, the optics, he can't be that stupid to not think that optics matter. You're a goddamn politician.
But politicians think the rules don't apply to them.
Well, that's my next question.
That's the
How did we get there?
I think it's
just
always been
pure
there.
power corruption.
Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's the saying, right? I mean, and that's the truth. When people get that taste of power, it corrupts them because they feel like it, and that's not even just in politics, right? That's in business. That's what I feel like when people. If you don't keep it in check and understand yourself and do that self-reflection, when you get to a level of power in life, in business, in politics, that can be your demise. Because you start believing you're invincible and the rules don't apply to you. And I can do what the fuck I want because I'm powerful. I'm in politics. I'm the CEO of this company. I can get out of anything. That's a big fucking... You're in the danger zone right there. And I think that's a lot of people's fall from grace.
Okay.
And I think people need it, and that's just a lack of self-awareness and self-reflection.
So I have stated many times on this show and also in my writings, whether it's social media, wherever I care to, that I believe that we traded lunacy for senility in this election. Now,
solid.
I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm just saying this is my position.
Sure.
So we dealt with Trump and we dealt with is that me or you?
That's you, man.
I actually have my phone on. That's the first thing I tell my guests to do is shut their phone off and look what I just did. Unbelievable.
You're a busy guy.
I'm not even going to cut this out to show people that I make mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
I make a lot of them.
It's real.
Daily. So, oh my God. All right. We've now had 9 months of this new presidency, and there's so many issues that we could talk about.
Sure.
But put these issues aside for a second and tell me, do you think the man has the cognitive ability to hold the office?
No, not at all.
I would say I'm in agreement with you on that point right now based upon what I've seen.
And it has nothing to do with
policy.
No, it has nothing. Like, you want who's ever in power to succeed. Like, that's my belief, right? Like, that's like
we have to.
Yeah, the pilot of the plane. You don't want the plane to crash. So you want who's ever piloting the plane, which is the United States, to do a really good job. I don't believe he is cognitively there. Just watching him. I mean, and if someone thinks otherwise, I would love to discuss and tell me why.
Well, I've had people tell me that, well, you can't say that because you're not a qualified doctor.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, 100%. And you can't say that because you're not a qualified doctor that he is.
Right.
Okay, so my opinion probably holds the same weight. Not that I care, but I guess if you're looking at it from scorecard, as yours does.
Yes,
because neither one of us are his dementia doctor. And I hope he has one because he needs one. Sorry, it's what I see. There's a look of blankness to him, and I won't say I weep for him. I haven't been that emotional about it, but I am emotional because I went through this with my father. I know the look of an aged brain and someone struggling. I know that look personally, and that doesn't make me a medical expert. No. It makes me a human expert.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something's not fucking right there, man.
I agree.
You can see it in the way he won't finish his sentences. He rushes to the next sentence. The words tail off.
Yep.
He's extremely forgetful. They can't cover for his mannerisms anymore. They're trying, the administration, and to their credit, they're trying, and I want them to keep trying because I don't want him to be viewed poorly on the world stage.
Right.
I want them to try to do whatever they can to mask that shit.
Yep.
But when it comes to him talking to us, something ain't right, Rocco.
No, I mean, that's why I won't take questions from reporters, right? Or only pre-approved, pre-screened questions. I mean, have you watched any of his press conferences? It's hard, and it's so different than Trump, right? Because Trump just said whatever the fuck he wanted and did whatever he wanted and didn't really follow any type of script, and they couldn't contain him. Biden's contained too much. Like, he's not allowed to speak as the president. It's almost sad when you watch it, because, you know, I get why people voted for him. He was the safe choice, right? He was the old white guy who just he'll make us feel safe and comfortable, right? That's really why I think a lot of people voted for it. It wasn't a vote for Biden; it was a vote against Trump.
Right.
The problem I have now is all of those vehement Biden supporters are nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be heard right now. And it's like, okay, if he had all this support, where are these people supporting him? And if you look at what he's doing, it's like almost every day, it's just he's sliding down that cognitive slope, and it's like a slow moving train wreck.
Okay.
Is how I feel. And it's scary because this is a country we live in, and it's going to impact us and our kids, what happens in these next 2 years.
Oh, there's no question.
And that's the scary part. And I'd rather someone say, yeah, he's out of his fucking mind, let's get him out. And if we have to put Kamala Harris in, so be it. She's cognitively there. You know, because that's the scary part. Because on the world stage, right, like, look how we're being looked at. The debacle in Afghanistan, you know, what's North Korea was testing nukes recently, or testing missiles in the water. Like, shit's happening that you're like, what the fuck? And like, the whole Afghanistan thing, like, no one wants to talk about that, but that's a big fucking deal.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Like, that's where
no doubt.
The majority of the world's lithium sits, underneath Afghanistan. And we just lost control of the area. And now China and Russia have moved in. And are going to basically control the supply of lithium, which makes fucking batteries. And no one's talking about this because we have this COVID distraction and the vaccines. It's like the Afghanistan debacle goes down, then all of a sudden we're going to put federal mandates in place for vaccines. And it's like, so that caused an uproar, and people just forgot about Afghanistan. It's like, that to me was a big fucking deal.
Yeah. So Afghanistan, I think, is an example of Joe, for whatever reason, and hopefully with insane mind, basically doing whatever he wants regardless of what he's being told. He believes something and nothing's going to change his mind. I think this immigration thing, I believe this immigration thing is another example of this, where he believes more than anything about he believes in open borders. He believes there's not enough immigrants. And I'm not faulting you for your philosophy if that's what you truly believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're not being told that's what we can go back historically and see him saying things like this. But he is enacting what I think he truly believes, but he's not being honest about what his true intentions, his true philosophy is. That's what I believe is happening.
I would agree. And the other problem I see with that is that, like, there's so much inconsistency, right? So they're gonna, if by November 1st border agents aren't vaccinated, they're gonna fire them. But immigrants that walk across the border don't have to be vaccinated. Like, what?
Insanity.
So we're going to force all these people and all these companies to force their employees to get vaccinated or be fined significantly, or people to lose their jobs. But the people are letting into the country, just walking across the border. We ask them if they want to be vaccinated, but it's their choice. So people that aren't from the country come into our country and have more freedom than we do.
That's always been the case. And we can't even use the term as citizens anymore, legal alien, because somehow that's harsh, hurtful. I get it. I don't want to hurt anybody, but at the same time, it is what it is.
Exactly.
You're an alien to our sovereignty, and you're here illegally.
Yes.
So you put those two together, I don't know how else to say, you know.
It's language.
If you had an idea to solve the big one, to solve the immigration issue, not just this current issue, but to solve our immigration policy, what are some of the ideas that you have?
Well, let me take a step back. Define what you mean by immigration problem.
Well, I think we have laws on the books that were sound laws and made sense in terms of the proper way to apply for a visa and then earn citizenship. There's a process for that.
Correct.
Right? We basically permit people to usurp that and just do whatever the hell they want, and just, you know, which is endangering a lot of these people who think there's an opportunity to just come here. They're in danger in the process of getting here. I don't want that either.
Correct.
So I think the laws on the books are probably written, and maybe some of them need amended, but they're already there. Am I right?
Yeah.
So
Enforce them.
okay.
Like, and again, this is not to simplify things, right? But I'm a lawyer, right? My job as a lawyer is to be the gatekeeper of the law, to enforce laws or help people understand laws or navigate the laws.
Okay.
With immigration, we have laws on the book that give you a process to come into this country. Why don't we just follow the law and enforce the law like we do with everything else, right? If I decide to go out and get drunk and drive and get pulled over, the officer's going to enforce that law against me, right?
Okay.
But why doesn't that happen at the border? If you come across the border illegally, go back home, do the real process. Like, why are we selectively choosing the laws to enforce?
We also, it's funny you said that. How do I even phrase this? We don't address the issue, and then we are okay with the other countries managing their borders in a much harsh and maybe more effective way.
Yes.
But we, for people in our country that want to do that, like another country effectively does it, we're the United States of America, we should be able to figure that out like this.
Yeah. I remember when I went to Israel, like, I thought I was a criminal just because they made me feel like a criminal when I was coming into the country. Like, it was literally security check after security check after. And it's just like those other countries make it very difficult to come into their country. We're just like, come on in. And I'm not saying I'm against immigration, but there's a process. We have laws in place for a fucking reason. Let's follow them, and let's not, like, if we have homeless veterans, like, that problem should be solved first.
There's no question.
Before we solve an immigration problem.
That shouldn't be a problem.
That shouldn't be a problem. Those people chose to fight for this country. They are better men than you and I sitting here now. They chose to sacrifice, put their life in line. Those people should not be homeless. Those people should be taken care of. They should be put on a pedestal before we do anything else. If we can't take care of your own before you take care of everybody else. Like in the airplane, put on your oxygen mask before you help somebody else.
Absolutely.
America, fix our own, help our own before we go and help everybody else.
Why do you think are the reasons why
power
certain? You think it's to increase the electoral base? I
think that's part of it. I mean, again, I do think that's part of it. I think it's because really, what's the other logical explanation?
I'm trying to find it. I
haven't been able to find one. Like, why do we want to let all these people that are not legally in the country come in and now be able to vote without voter ID?
Right.
And be able to kind of do what they want and get health care and take services from people that should be having it in our country? It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm all for letting people, I'm all for being a land of opportunity. I believe America is still the greatest country in the world. I mean, I truly believe that. I'm a patriot at heart. I believe in this country and what we stand for. We're flawed as a nation. Every nation is. No nation's supposed to be perfect.
Of course.
And you learn and you grow from that. But the fact that we're so focused on just letting people in without fixing our own problems, that's the problem I have. Like, when I see like homeless veterans and homeless, American families and children that are from this country, that were born here, and yet we're giving all these benefits to people just walking across the border and not taking care of this segment. That kills me. Like, that's what pisses me off.
It's just on principle.
On pure principle. Like, that should be fixed first before we even talk about immigration.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
It's funny too, like, I don't understand how, like, all these things always end up, they all line up liberal or conservative. There's always like this issue falls here. Yeah. This one falls here. This falls here. This falls here. It almost seems too clean the way that's done, because there's plenty of issues that I have a liberal bent to, and then I have a conservative bent to.
Same here.
And I would think that most people probably have similar questions inside them as to what they believe, right?
Sure.
So, but why is it always so clean? Like, Fox's mantra is to talk about how all these bad things that the Democrats are doing and how they should be corrected. And then the exact opposite is on CNN and MSNBC, that, the Republicans doing all these bad things and we're righteous and we should do things this way. It's too clean. The delineation. And we're not that as a people.
No, we're not, but that's money. That's dollars. It's advertising. Think about
entertainment.
Think about Fox and CNN and MSNBC. They're paid by advertisers, right? They need to get viewers. So they get viewers by being sensationalists on one side or the other, right? No one's really reporting the news. They're spinning the news. Or they're spinning events, is what I would rather say. They're events that happen, they put their spin and narrative on it. Because literally, it could be, it could be whatever. And it's two sides.
Well, you saw it during the riots last
mostly
year.
Peaceful protests. I'm like, I don't think that's a protest.
There's a car burning there.
Building.
It's like
that's not, like, just call it what it is. Like, it's, I mean, they're doing it for their cause.
There were plenty of peaceful protests.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the ones where there's fires burning and there's combat between protesters and police and riot gear and like Molotov cocktails, that's not what you would consider to be a peaceful protest. Nothing I've ever seen.
No, I don't want to be in that protest. Definitely not.
No, I don't want to be. And I don't know. It just seems so clean to me. Like the sides are just decided. It's like they all met in secrets. Okay, we're going to take these 3 issues. We're going to take these 3 issues. We're going to fight. And
honestly, that could be something that have happened. It's just I just feel like because values or these issues line up on values, right? They line up on, being a patriot is the Republican side, right? Like it's America first, conservative. The liberals is let's be altruistic, let's help everybody, let's let everybody in, let's just be this
I'm a citizen of the world.
Right. And that's okay, but we have borders for a reason. There's not one world. There's countries within a world, and we have borders for a reason. Like, yes. I just can't walk across the Canada border.
Do we really have borders, though?
I mean, other countries do. I mean,
yes.
We necessarily don't.
Right.
And that's the problem. And I think I think that's because those issues line up very much with values on one side or the other. That's how I see it.
Somehow we have confused the concept of being mean with being orderly. The enforcement of order. I don't even mean... I'm not saying vicious order or imposing your will on someone. I'm talking about the mechanics of life, just the order so everybody can have a good life.
Drive on the right side of the road, going this way.
The mechanics of life, right. Now all of a sudden we have a certain portion of our populace that really wants to examine all the orderly things we do and find that there's got to be some angle where someone's being egreged here. That's what it seems to me like. Everything's under examination for being mean.
Well, I agree, and I think a lot of it has to do with people are just unhappy, and so when people become unhappy,
it's the greatest place on the fucking planet, man.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like I feel very fortunate to do what I do, to know the people I know, to be sitting here on a Friday and to have the people in my life. But I think a majority of Americans are unhappy. So they're always looking to point a finger at to why they're unhappy.
Okay.
Instead of looking at the mirror and understanding that's why you're unhappy.
Okay.
It comes from within. Like happiness is internal, but people are always looking at the external. I'm egreged. Who egreged me? Who fucked me over? Who did this? Instead of saying, did you make the effort? Are you a good person? Are you doing the right things in life? People just want to point fingers and look somewhere else. They don't want to do that self-reflection and have that self-awareness to say, hey, my happiness is up to me.
Right.
And I think if people just spent more time really thinking to themselves about what they truly want and who they truly are and what makes them happy and not try to find a reason why they're not happy, I think life would get a lot simpler for a lot of people.
Okay.
I'm a happiness guy.
Yeah, I know, but that whole opens up a whole other can of worms, though.
I
because
like cans of worms.
Yeah, I know, but it's like
I'm gonna open this can of energy drink.
In that happiness thing, we are so marketed and sold to through commercialization that we have now somewhat, I think, been conditioned to believe that other things, often inanimate objects, are what's going to make us happy, and we are constantly being disappointed and maybe even sent in the reverse direction.
But
that's a problem.
But I believe that's because people don't self-reflect. They just let that be told to them. and let them believe that that's, how do you define happiness? Let me ask you that question. How would you, right now, sitting here, October 1st, 2021, how would you define happiness?
I'm probably a little odd when I say this, but I think having the freedom to do what the hell I want to do when I want to do it is probably my interpretation of happiness.
Okay. Do you get that externally or internally?
I get it internally.
How? Like, what? Explain to me your process of being happy.
Belief in myself and finding, like, whether it's a career or finding a life plan that gives me freedom.
Mm-hmm. As simple as that. People don't want to do that work, though, and don't want to look at it that way, right? If you say it's being able to, so take what you said, right? You said happiness is to do whatever you want.
And M&Ms. You got to have M&Ms.
M&Ms are delicious.
That's part of it, yeah.
That's delicious.
For sure.
Okay. Sushi would be my thing. M&Ms are your thing. Okay. So, but you said to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, right?
Within reason, yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people, though, that take happiness from an external and say, well, that means money. That means I need these things. I need more money. I need this. And how do I get that? And why does that person have it and I don't? And what, it's because, I'm a guy, I'm a girl, I'm white, I'm black, I'm this, I'm that. And they start looking at reasons why they don't have something instead of looking at what they didn't do to get it. Like you said, you had a life plan. You made a plan. You said, happiness to me is I've got to figure out how to do this.
Right.
I define happiness pretty much the same way. Being able to be around the people I want to be around, do what I love to do every day, and have just the ability to experience life. It's not tied to money. I mean, money makes things easier to an extent, but
it's an instrument.
It's an instrument, exactly. But I had to say, no one's going to hand those things to me. No one's going to say, here's the platter that you can use. I had to go out and figure it out. I had to make that plan. I had to know that my happiness is dependent on me internally, making that plan and doing the work. The majority of people I know that say they're unhappy and complain about certain things haven't done the work internally to find the happiness. Their happiness is reliant upon external factors. So when your happiness is based upon something external, you have no control over it. So you lose control.
Do they even know? They have to start by understanding what makes them happy. Well, that's or what would make them happy.
Well, that's also a big part of the problem. Right? I don't think a lot of people know what makes them happy, or they just think they know what makes them happy, and they haven't really asked themselves the question, like, how much money is enough? That's a big question that people have, right? They say, what's the statistic that once you make over $70,000 a year, the level of happiness with more money they don't equate. Like, it doesn't mean if you make $700,000, you're not much more happier than you were at 70.
Right.
So I do think a lot of people don't even do the work to understand what happiness is to them.
Isn't it interesting?
I know we're way off topic.
No, there is no topic.
Of course.
The Jim Rohn used to say, make it a goal, and then this is 30, 40 years ago, so it's different. He said, make it a goal to become a millionaire.
Okay.
Not for the money, but for what the journey will make of you as a human.
That's exactly it. That is exactly, and that's the thing. Like what you said right there, if anybody takes anything from this episode, take that one little thing you said and apply it to your life. Like, that's what has helped me tremendously. Like I always say, like, when I talk about my law firm, right, to be like, it's not about the goal we have of money or how much we do or how many clients we have. It's who I get to become when I hit that goal. So to me, it's like when I said I want to run a $10 million law firm, I'm not the guy sitting here that can do that yet. I get to become that guy when I get there. And that's growth, and that's development, and that's the beauty of life. That's where you find that happiness. It's not the achievement of the goal, it's the becoming the person that achieves the goal. That's where happiness comes from, in my opinion. That's the thing that people aren't looking at. They're looking at the Ferrari, the Lamborghini. Like, if I don't have that, I'm not happy. If I don't have $1 million in the bank, I'm not happy. But who are you becoming along the way is what should make you. The journey is what should make you happy, in my opinion.
No question about it. No question. The end goal. That goes to a whole nother slippery conversation about generations that are coming up now in social media and in the internet. Is like the end goal is thrown in their face right away. It's supposed to be a carrot or a nugget. Yeah. You're not supposed to be able to physically touch it and possess it, because then all of a sudden it's no longer a goal.
Right.
So
exactly.
The misuse of credit, the delusion of just immediacy is robbing them of the beauty of the journey, the life enrichment of the journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Tried to explain this to my kids, and I probably didn't do a good job. I just said, look, the beauty of your life is going to be the journey that you go through in college, the journey of your first couple of jobs, the journey of things you want to acquire but can't, and you make a goal to get them. And then when you finally are able to get them, you'll find that you don't want them. That's the beauty of everything.
Yes.
But it isn't about, it's like they feel my kids, and I'm sure their whole generation at times feel like there's a pressure on them for immediacy.
Yeah. Well,
it's the wrong way to live.
100%. But that's the world we're in right now, right? It's instant gratification. Everything's fast. Technology makes everything quicker. But to your point, I think that is the thing people need to understand across the board is it's about the journey. And the fact that we get to wake up in America every day and live the way we live should give people a sense of happiness in and of itself, right? Yeah, people are in different stations in life, right? But we live in a country where I don't have to worry about walking out in the street and seeing someone with a gun, like military walking around. I don't have to worry about car bombs. I don't have to worry about those crazy things that people worry about in other countries. We get to live pretty free here.
Right.
But yet we're always looking for what makes us unhappy or what triggers us or what makes us angry or fearful. Like people love that fear or that emotion. It's almost like it's intoxicating to them. It's like happiness isn't a strong enough emotion. Fear and anxiety is. So they're
craving the anxiety?
They seek out that. I feel like, and again, this is just my perspective because like I'm a happy person. Like I enjoy life. I don't run in like kicking my heels and have this huge emotional outburst.
I'd like to see that.
You're not going to see that ever. I can promise you that. So, I mean,
he did that in Vegas. He's not saying.
Right. Maybe on episode number 50, we'll have a few drinks and I'll kick my
Vegas.
heels. Yes, exactly. But I think then you see people that have the fearful emotions and the anxiety. They're expressive and it charges them up and it gives them that it's almost like a drug. It's that intoxicating because think about like when you're afraid, like that's a feeling you get over your whole body, right? And your learned behaviors, that's fear, and you feel a certain way and it gives you that rush, right? Happiness doesn't necessarily give you that rush. Happiness is just a state of being.
Got it.
So I think people are seeking out that because of instant gratification. So it's that quick hit of fear and anxiety. It's like they get that rush. It's like, oh, I'm anxious. Oh, I'm scared. Like, oh, COVID and the masks. And it's like, but
interesting.
And happiness doesn't give you that thing because
that's it.
We're just happy. Like you and I are here. We're happy guys. We're having a discussion.
Right.
We're not emotionally charged up, but I feel good.
Right.
But I don't get those quick hits that like that a drug gives you.
Dopamine.
Right. And that's what those, I think that's how I've been seeing things lately, that people dig into that fear and that anxiety and that negative emotion because it's those quick hits. It's that rush they get. And happiness doesn't give you that rush because happiness is just the state of being.
Another subject.
Okay.
It's too simple to say the following, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, take away social media and the internet tomorrow, and the world will become a much nicer place over time. It's too easy to say that, I think, because if that was even possible, then we would almost immediately succumb to the powers that be. Yeah. Because what the internet does do is give a voice to everybody, even if some don't deserve it. But my point is that, it's a double-edged sword. Like the internet, we were so down on the internet all the time, but there's so much benefit of giving that platform. And that's what makes it even so egregious that platform can be taken away from, whether it's a politician or someone that doesn't believe in vaccines. And even if I think they might be completely full of shit, I shouldn't have the right to squash them out of the narrative, right?
Exactly.
Or if they want to try to become because here's the bottom line. They believe, maybe in their delusion, but they believe that there's got to be more people that either think like them or that are susceptible to thinking like them, and they're trying to express their point. Yeah. In the end, I think the majority figures it out and marginalizes those people. That's a democratic society.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But I think that it's not. The answer is not to take away the internet or take away social media. We would be worse people if that was the case. I think.
I agree. But then the question is, how do you get people to be nicer?
Yeah, how do we stop this train of dysfunction?
I feel like if we could solve that, we'd be gazillionaires.
Yeah.
And look, I just think like people should just try and be kind. Like, it feels really good. Like, when you're nice to someone and kind to someone, like, I'm not a perfect person. I get mad sometimes.
Yeah,
but
right.
Like, when you walk down the street and I look at someone and smile and just say, hey, how are you? Like, that's a good feeling.
Where do we lose that?
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I think we figured that out as kids for the most part, right?
Yeah, and I feel like it makes people feel awkward now, because I'm the type of guy, like, I'll just say hi to people. I'll look and I smile, and people get awkward. Like, I'll walk around a grocery store, and if I just walk, and if someone gives me eye contact, I look at them and smile and say, hey, how are you? And it's weird, and I think people, because again, they live in this state of fear and this state of negative emotion, and they don't know how to deal with a positive person or a positive influence.
Interesting.
It just, I don't know, it just fucks with people's heads.
Yeah, I think you're spot on right there, and I don't know why that happened. I mean,
the media
I guess happen. Yes. But we have to. Yes. We can't blame it entirely, because we're permitting them to come into our brains.
Correct.
We could shut off the gateway to our mind if we chose to.
Yeah, but again,
we're not strong enough to do it.
Right.
I watch my own family. You know, I love them to pieces, but there's members of my family that won't get off the flipping couch because they are actually being, their minds and their brains are being sucked into the television.
Yeah. Yep.
It drives me. I want to drink because of that reason. It drives me crazy. I don't begrudge them to do that. That's where they find comfort, fun, solace, whatever. I view that as you're being enslaved by. I feel you're partially being mentally enslaved by a narrative. Little mini narratives,
negative narrative.
I think so. Generally,
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking in my head. Like,
I think so.
I've stopped really watching the news for the most part, and I'll read certain things, and I watch news from foreign countries because you're trying to get better reporting of America.
Right. They don't like us.
but they also just report facts. But
generally,
if I think of anything I watch on CNN or Fox, I can't tell you one positive story I've seen in the past 10 times I've turned on any. So think about that.
Oh man,
you're watching the news. You're feeding your brain purely negative.
Yes. Right.
So now your automatic response in life is you're looking for negative.
Yes.
So when you experience the positive of something, it triggers you. It's like, it's weird. Like, why? Like, that's why people are uncomfortable with it now.
Almost
because
in reverse.
It's true. Because think about that. Like, people are expecting others to be assholes or to be kind or to be just disconnected. The moment you engage with someone, it shocks them because it's not the expectation in their brain. Their brain is so wired to see the negative or to see the indifference in life that when someone triggers that positive side, it's like, what the fuck? Like, this is weird.
This is so true. So something happens, I think, and on the facts of this, I'm a little gray, so nobody hold me to this, but just talking generalities for a second. I have to preface that because I'll get an email.
I'm your lawyer.
You were wrong. Yeah, my lawyer's sitting right here, by the way.
Disclaimer. Do not hold these as facts.
Correct. Every year, I think, Congress or the congressional members, they have a softball game.
Okay.
I'm familiar with this. I think one of the representatives, Steve Scalise, unfortunately was shot many years ago at this. You know, I think that's what brought it to public prominence. But apparently, members of Congress get together and play softball.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's multiple games or I don't know the details, but it happens. This is an example of what we should be seeing more of in terms of being broadcast to us.
Yes.
There was absolutely no, I won't say there's no reason, but think about the missed opportunity. Had Fox and or CNN taken that game, put some people out ahead of time, do some background stories, even for 2 hours, and shown our representatives having a game of softball with some background stories, show the camaraderie, show them getting, even if it's all optics, I don't care. It would be a positive experience. Instead, we get a little blip, and they won't talk about it unless they have a snide remark. Well, they were able to put their their minds together for an hour and a half, or they'll have to bring Steve Scalise getting shot. They have to bring up some kind of sensationalist bullshit with it. It was a game of softball. Why couldn't that have been a feature story?
Absolutely.
That would have shown even kids.
Yes.
Here's your representatives. Oh, he's a Republican. He's a Democrat. Look at them.
They're working together. They're enjoying life.
That's
they're being
the
human.
optics that it's just another missed opportunity. A little blip on the web page of all of it, and it's gone.
Well, that was the Trump Dave Portnoy interview.
It's insane.
Like that was the one I thought should have been put out there a lot more. Because that was one of those moments where you saw the human side of Trump. Like he was just a dude,
I've watched
talking to another dude, and he like got on the phone. Like Dave wanted to call his dad. He's like, "My dad hates you." I mean, that's literally what he said. He's like, "My dad does not
Trump
like you."
was okay to talk
and he
to
was
him.
like, "Yeah," and he talked to him like polite and just wasn't triggered by it. And it was like, we need to see more politicians like being human and humanizing them, and I think that would help shift that narrative. But because again, I think the media and social media has wired people to be so negative and automatically look for it's that recency effect, right? Like you never see a red car, then when you go buy a red car, every car is red. So if all you're seeing is negative, everything you see in the world is negative. Right. You know, like I remember when I bought my first like nice car, and I'm like, I never saw this color car. I'm like, and then like 3 days later, there was like 5 of them in my fucking parking lot where I worked. I'm like, oh, I thought I bought this cool colored
Jeep
car.
And watch that happen to you.
But it's great. But it's because I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah.
But then when I had it, that's all I saw. So when we're getting fed negative energy,
absolutely,
that's all we see.
We need optics from these major media houses showing congressional people doing things together. I mean, one of the most inspiring things I remember as an adult was seeing 9/11, and you can say this is corny if our audio listeners or our viewers think this is corny. I'm telling you the truth. When I saw that entire Congress on the steps of the Capitol a week or two or a couple days after 9/11, I think they sang, and
that was America.
That was America, man. When I saw George Bush on the rubble of 9/11 talking to the megaphone, he wasn't a Republican at that time. No. He wasn't a Democrat. He was the president of the United States.
He was an American.
And those moments shouldn't always be crisis related. We need to find a way to mainstream unity, and I think our media houses play some responsibility there.
Yeah, a lot. I think I think I have an idea for us. We should start an all positive news network.
We'd be out of business in a week.
APNN, All Positive News Network. That's because people need to hear like that's the thing. Like I say with my kids, like I try and be positive around them all the time. Like we're not perfect as parents. We're not perfect as adults, but I want my kids to see the opportunities in the world, in the good in the world. And you know, that's why I've done talks on kindness, because I believe it fucking matters. And people we just need more of that in the world. We need to find a way to get people to turn off the fucking news and stop fighting with each other and just be willing to listen. Like that's what frustrates me the most, right? When I go on to social media and you see like the you know, just talk to COVID, right? The mask, no mask, or vax, no mask, no vax debate. And it's like people are just assholes on both sides of it. It's like, what, can't we just agree to like have a discussion, right? If you don't believe in masks, that's your choice. If you believe in masks, that's your choice.
On.
Don't cross each other's paths. If you believe in vaccines, take it 50 times. If you don't and you understand the risks, don't. Totally fine. Like, we should not be vilifying the other side because they believe in something we don't.
What about just labeling people that don't want to be labeled? Like, I don't really prefer for the masses to label me. And
no, not at all.
I don't really care. But if you asked me, would I prefer? Does it bother me? I'm like, I guess it kind of bothers me that someone's going to label me for their own purposes, something that I might not be.
Yeah,
I guess, but it's not productive. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't help me. No, and it definitely doesn't help, I don't think, me maneuvering in society.
No,
it's not good practice.
There's no point to these labels. They're arbitrary labels. When you think about it, I mean, it's just...
Isn't everything arbitrary?
Well, I mean, I always say the only labels I want is, you know, father, friend, husband, son, like the good things in life, right?
Podcast guest.
Yeah, podcast guest too. That is that's my second favorite one, other than father. That's my second favorite one. But I think that's the problem, right? People again, that comes back to being wired for the negative. Like, people are just wired to be negative, so labeling someone is a negative. Like, I don't want to give you the credit of being an individual. I'm going to call you this because you're different than me, and I don't like that. And so you're anti this, or you're pro this.
They're making up
their what the fuck?
But they're almost like making up my mind. Like, when you guess at what my, it's one thing for me to say something. If I say that I am pro-choice, if I say Eric McKenna is pro-choice, you can surmise that I'm pro-choice. You heard it from the horse's mouth.
Yes.
But if we're having a discussion and I care not to reveal that, and you look for an angle to kind of, and you're so hell-bent on labeling me, you look for the angle, and then you attach it, you attach a label to people without any facts. That is fucking up society.
But think
in
about
a bad way.
Well, agree, but think about why they do that, right? They want to know if you're on their team or not, if you're with them or against them, because there's no in between anymore. There's no in between anymore because we've polarized the country.
Man,
that's really, in my opinion, what it is. Are you on my team, or are you playing on that team? Do I like you or fucking hate you? Because there's no in between. Indifference doesn't matter anymore. We've talked about it many times. You and I are very indifferent to a lot of things, but being indifferent means we're against the person's opinion. They can't comprehend that sometimes.
So both sides hate you.
I just don't give a shit about something. Like, there are certain things in life that have no effect on me personally or anyone close to me that I don't care to put energy into.
But I think that should be the norm for most people, because I don't think our minds are wired enough to have an opinion on everything. You can't.
Well,
not an intelligent opinion.
Here's the thing: the people that are out doing are the ones that don't have the time. It's the people that aren't out doing anything. Think about the people that are causing these problems, right? They're the ones that are sitting on social media 8 hours a day. Like, you and I don't have time to do that shit. Like, I'm just doing my thing, living my life, trying to build a business where my employees can be successful and have fun working, and my family's taken care of.
Right.
And that's what I'm concerned about. And I'm not worried about this other shit. I have my opinions on certain things, but I don't really care to put energy into it. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. If it impacts me or those people I'm responsible for, my employees, my family, my close friends, if it impacts that, then I'll get in the ring and have a discussion and have a debate and try and solve the problem. If it doesn't impact that circle, I'm pretty indifferent to it. Don't really give a fuck.
Yeah, well, I get it. I totally get it. And I actually was having a conversation this past week with a gentleman who was literally offended. I think it sure seemed like he was doing this offended thing because I didn't have an opinion on an issue, and I wouldn't talk about it because I didn't feel I was well read enough to be well spoken about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't really care. And so when I couldn't articulate what my opinion was, even if I had one, I probably wouldn't have offered it up, but I really didn't have one.
Right.
And I expressed that to him. Hey, let's just talk about something else, because I don't really, you'll run roughshod over me because I don't even know what the question is.
Right.
He was offended. I think it's the closest thing I can see is being offended. Like, how can you not? He actually said to me, how do you even move throughout your day? Not being able to have a conversation on this very important topic, which it was political. And I looked at him like, wow, man. Okay.
To me, like, that's
crazy.
Your answer is a respectful answer. To me, that's like, okay, you are respecting this gentleman's time or this gentlewoman's time by saying, I don't know enough about this, so this discussion is going to do nothing. Literally.
For anybody.
Like, for anybody. Like, to me, like, I try and do that with clients, right? Like, if I don't know, I'm like, I don't know. Like, let's not waste time trying for me to come up with something. Let me just go figure it out and I'll come back to you. And I think if people look at that and took offense to that's a big problem, because I look at what you just said, like, that's a problem. That's respectful. Like, if you said that to me, I'm like, I respect that. Like,
well, of course.
I appreciate you saying that I'm not going to waste your time talking about something that I don't give a fuck about or have a clue about. Cool.
Yeah, I just don't have enough information. And then I did tell him, I said, in all honesty, I just don't have a level of interest that makes me want to spend time doing it. Maybe that offended him. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know what offends people anymore.
No, and that's a problem.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly right.
If I could anticipate that person's going to be offended by my indifference, I would avoid them completely.
I'd be more respectful of people. Not that I'm not respectful of people, but if people got offended and told me why they were offended, like, and not get offended by what I said, just say, just so you understand, like, that offends me and here's why. I'm not going to say what you said because you didn't know any
there's
better.
A level of sophistication there.
Right, like, you would say, like, I'm not saying you offended me, but the saying that type of thing offends me and here's why. You didn't know that, so I'm not going to hold it against you. Of course. Like, that's how we get back to civility in society.
That's sophistication, and not the highest order, mind you.
No.
That isn't really even sophisticated thought. That's just being a decent person.
Yeah, that's like being a C student.
Pretty much.
Like figuring out that, like, hey,
that's like first level stuff.
Yeah, like it's so frustrating today because I'm not the type of person to watch what I say. Like, I say what I want to say, but I'm a very respectful person, and I have very moderate viewpoints. And the fact that I even have to think that what I say could possibly that just frustrates me, because you can't have free thought.
Yes, it is an attack on free thought.
It is. It really is.
It is.
Because, like, the whole not to get into it, but the whole, like, transgender thing, I get it, and that's totally cool. But if I don't know any better, and you walk into the room and you look like, what I deem a female, right? What society has told me a female is, that's the wrong thing for decades, and I refer to you as she. If you correct me, totally fine. Won't make that mistake again. But if you get offended because I said that, that's where I see the problem.
Well, then I will look at you and say, fuck you. Yeah. Because I did not come here with the intent of offending anybody.
Right, exactly. You
and
never do.
It was an honest mislabel or miscalculation or misdescription or whatever you want to say it was.
Yes.
If you come at me nicely, great. I'll sorry,
I
will not happen
that.
again.
Absolutely.
100%. I don't have to understand it to be respectful toward it.
Right.
But if you come at me unabated for no reason or for an honest mistake, then I really want nothing to do with you. I won't attack your gender, but I will want nothing to do with you as an individual. Because
and that's where I think a lot of the problem stems from, right? So I think we have these problems with these classes of people because instead of having that sophisticated, I'm sorry, that's not what I'm referred to, that's not what I go by, they automatically get offended, so it makes people kind of just pull back, like, I don't want to deal with you anymore. And it's not that you don't want to deal with the class, you just don't want to deal with that person, but people take it as, well, you don't want to deal with this type of person. And I just wish people would get back to this level of civility where, like, if I identified as a female or a binary, right, and I walked in the room and you said, hey man, and I got offended, like, that's not fair, because I look like, I have a beard, I look like a guy, and that's what we got to get back to. And it's not a shot at anybody, it's just, how do we get back to a level of civility in society? Because I want my kids to grow up in a world where we're tolerant of everybody.
Absolutely.
And we can have opinions, and we can have discussions, and we shouldn't take offense. And if we do offend somebody, we understand why. That person explains it in a decent and dignified way, and it doesn't happen again.
Well, bingo. There would be your ultimate quote-unquote teachable moment.
Yeah, right.
But you can't have a teachable moment if they're coming at you with vitriol and attacking you for an honest mistake that you made.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's happening. And by no means is it specific to the transgender community.
Not at all. No,
it's specific to pretty much from the NRA to ethnicity. It's everything. You can offend anybody for any reason right now.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is, I mean, what a way to go around. What a way to go around.
Yeah,
and I just don't get it, man. I guess I'm not an uncaring individual, but I just don't give a rat's ass about people's outward hostility toward others. I'm sorry, I just don't. If it comes from an area of being offended or just being mean-spirited, that's not my problem.
Yeah, it's
just not. If you're going to act that way, I will leave.
Yeah, people just need to try being happy, or just not giving
or
a shit.
asking them what makes them happy. Like they can't try until they actually know what the hell makes them happy. But
it's unfortunate that we're here in this country, and I wish I knew a way to solve it. And I feel like we have little pieces of things that we can do over time that could potentially right the ship somewhat, but it takes everybody to want to do it.
And we're all human, so if they were just if somebody deems themselves a generally unhappy person through the course of their life, I'm sure they've had moments where they were happy.
Absolutely.
You got to find those moments and examine them.
Yeah.
See, that's self-examining that we talk about. It's like
true.
And that's just not happening. And that may be coming, or that may be happening because of intellectual laziness in regards to how we manage our time, our inward focus. And it isn't like people don't get it, because there's millions of college students that are very studious and studying their way through school and mind power and all this stuff, right?
Yeah. It's not hard. It
takes effort.
It's effort. That's effort. It's not difficult. It just takes effort to do. And it's you have to want to do it. And some people just don't want to.
I know.
That's the problem, right? They just don't want to make the change.
Yes.
Because they're comfortable in the negative. They're comfortable in the fear. They're comfortable being angry.
All right. Before we wrap this up, I have to ask you this one question. This is a hot button topic.
Okay.
So I want to get your thoughts on what I perceive to be the glamorizing of body type.
Okay.
Celebrating obesity.
Okay.
And I really mean that. And what I'm saying is, where do you draw a line where we go from celebrating individuality and letting people be who they are, and then at the same time promoting an unhealthy body type?
Well, oh man,
here we go.
So
I told you I was going to wrap that up tight today.
But
you understand what I'm referring to.
Yeah. I mean, look, I believe in individuality and expression of that.
Yes.
However, we should not be glamorizing unhealthy behaviors.
Okay.
So I think that's where we have to draw the line, right? Because I know some people that are extremely healthy. Their metabolism, they can't lose weight. They're
No doubt.
They're like I myself. I'm not as lean as I used to be. Right? I'm 44 years old, and so my body has changed. But I eat healthy. I live a healthy lifestyle for the most part. Do I think we should be glamorizing obesity without an explanation of healthy obesity, is what I would say. No, because I think that's the problem, right? They're saying, well, I could just be whoever I want to be and be individual. And it's like, that's fine, you can, but are you living a healthy lifestyle? Because that taxes the entire system if you're not. And that impacts other people, right? I mean, look at going back to COVID. Look at the majority of COVID deaths, underlying conditions and obesity. So how do you glamorize that when we're talking about we're in a health crisis?
Well, we're doing that, I think, in the guise of not wanting to offend people.
Well,
or the guise of everybody being, and I think there is some. I think the fact that we have gone through decades, I will pinpoint the 70s, 80s, and a part of the 90s as being bad decades for body shaming.
Yeah.
And not that it's gone away today. It's not. Correct. But I'm saying this were really bad decades for that. And I think that that's a horrible thing. Body shaming is a horrible thing. So to combat body shaming, we've kind of somewhat flipped it on its head, and now just anything goes.
Well, let me challenge your head even further with this. So look at other countries around the world, right? Most of them are pretty healthy. There's not much obesity because they can't put certain things in food. They can't advertise certain things on TV. America, we can put whatever the fuck we want in food. We can advertise whatever the fuck we want on TV. So these lobbyists and these big corporations almost encourage obesity because that obesity is what buys their products.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that, right? I mean, other countries, they can't advertise pharmaceuticals.
Right.
They can't advertise Lipitor and diabetes medication. They can't put certain dyes and certain unnatural ingredients in
I
food.
think the quality of their food is different too.
Well, absolutely. So America, I mean, again, it's unfortunate, but these companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the food companies, they make most of their money off of an obese population. Because most healthy people don't go out and buy Doritos and sugary cereal and pop and stuff like that, where obese people tend to, or people that fall in that category tend to buy junk food. Healthy people don't tend to need pharmaceuticals. Obese people do.
Right.
So when we start glamorizing that obesity is okay, all it does is lines the pockets of those companies. I mean, that's how I see it. And I'm not saying that's the answer. That's what's happening.
Do you think obesity is accepted in this country now? I mean, I don't mean that people don't deserve to be accepted. Let me clarify, because I'll get the hate mail. I'm just stating not accepted. Accepted was probably the wrong word on my behalf. We have legitimized obesity, and we've mainstreamed it to the point where it's nothing that people should look to avoid.
Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it. That from a health standpoint.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. Yes. I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
And that's where, and I think we talked briefly on it. That was one of the biggest, and I know Rogan's been a big proponent of it, and many people around him, that there was not enough emphasis on, like, okay, so who is the virus hurting?
Yes.
Who's most susceptible to it? Let's see if maybe we can encourage people to eat better.
Yes.
Maybe consider a multivitamin.
Yeah.
Maybe get some sun.
Yeah.
Maybe sleep better.
Yeah.
Not stay up all night watching Netflix. We actually created a pandemic lockdown that got the country dependent upon activities that further exacerbated our health.
Yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. We weren't talking about that. And then look at the economics of it, right? Look at how much more expensive it is to eat healthy in this country than compared to eating like shit. I mean, think about it. So these companies, again, they're the lobbyists. They're the ones supporting the politicians, right? Donating to both sides, right? It's not just one side or the other. It's both sides.
I would agree with you.
So now they want these products to be on the shelves. They want people to stay unhealthy, because unhealthy people, like when we go to the grocery store, I shop on the outside. Fruits, veggies, meats, dairy, right? And some frozen stuff. That's expensive. When we go shopping, it's $400.
Let the wife buy the kids sugary cereal and all that shit.
My kids eat some of that stuff, but if I shop from the middle of the hour, all the processed shit is, my grocery bill would be half.
All right, exactly.
And those, you know what
there's
I mean?
no question.
So that's the economics is encouraging obesity,
right?
Because the economics
meals
of food,
at McDonald's,
right? I mean, to buy a salad at McDonald's, it's like $6, but you can get a double cheeseburger for $1. That has more calories and more fat in it,
sodium,
and that's the thing. Fat. But that's, again, there's a whole economic driver to the normalizing of obesity in this country, because, you know, I understand that some people just fall into that category just because of genetics,
because we're all built differently. Like, absolutely,
100%. But when we encourage people to eat shitty and to just take pharmaceuticals to solve the problem, there's many economic drivers to that narrative. And that's the scary part, that we've just normalized that. These companies are driving the bus saying, it's okay. It's okay. You can have whatever body you want. Eat whatever you want. We have the medicine that will help you if you get sick.
It is so screwed up, man.
I mean, think about how
so screwed up.
When I say, like, think about how fucked up that is. Instead of saying, no, you should be a healthy body weight, get outside, exercise, move, eat healthy, just do the things right for you. They're saying, no, we got a pill for that. We got a pill for that. We got a pill for that.
All right, so let me share this. I have no problem sharing this. I think I may have done it at some show way in the past, but my father recently passed, and my father was a hardworking man. Yeah. I mean, he worked a lot of hours all the time, but he had a horrible diet. And my father came down with type 1 diabetes, the real diabetes.
Yeah.
Not the real diabetes, but the one that's a lot more dangerous, right? And where he had to take injections every day. And no one in our family had any history of that. We were all puzzled by it. So he's a very active person, but he was conditioned to eat the food that made it was either comforting to him or whatever. He was not going to give that food up, although he would have to give himself an injection. My father would have a bowl of ice cream every night after he ate his probably rather somewhat unhealthy dinner.
Yeah.
And then he would give the shots, and it's right after he ate the ice cream, which required him to take the shots.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? It was actually a mindset that I think that is shared with a lot of the population.
And that's the scary part.
Take the pill, take the shot, because we know you want to enjoy that satiation when you eat.
You want that comfort. You want that comfort from the food.
Really, to me, it's extremely sad. And I could recognize that 2 decades ago when he was doing it, that it wasn't right.
Yeah.
But I think that little example is symptomatic to a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the pure example, right? Because think about ice cream, right? It costs very little to make, and they make a ton of money off of it. Think about that medicine. Very little to make, ton of money off of it. So let's encourage this person. Oh, you have type 1 diabetes?
Type 1, yeah.
No worries. You can still have this ice cream that these big corporations make a lot of money. Instead of eating a salad that's expensive and pays the local farmers, and you can do it, and then we're just going to sell you this medicine that we make $1 gazillion off of that you just inject afterwards. Problem solved. And we normalize that as a society and a behavior. And that's why I keep saying, like, there's so much, even with when I talked about the beginning of the show, like the economics of COVID, there's so much behind what's going on from an economic standpoint,
right,
that people aren't, I don't think, realizing. Like, this is like when you talk about these vaccines and now getting a booster shot, and now Pfizer's testing a daily pill. Like, think about how much money someone's paying for it. They say vaccines are free. Someone's paying for them.
Nothing's for free.
Right. Pfizer's not just giving them away. The government's paying for them, who means we are paying for them in future tax dollars. It's all economics.
And the pill was obviously they want the pill, I think, the powers that be anyways, because the resistance of taking a pill will be much less than actually getting the jab.
Correct. Exactly right.
The fear of needles and all that nonsense.
Absolutely right. And it's a daily dose to make your vaccine work better.
But it would be a daily pill?
That's what
like a vitamin? Your COVID vitamin?
The document I read, I think it said Pfizer was in phase 2 trials of a daily COVID preventative that you take daily to prevent COVID. So I don't know if it's in addition to the vaccine or if it's instead of the vaccine, but it's a daily dose, a daily pill you take. I don't know if you take it every day for the rest of your life or for however long, or seasonal. I don't know. I just saw an article I read that Pfizer was in this stage 2 trial. They didn't give you a ton of information on it.
Boy, that's fascinating.
The other fascinating part is, like, when they talked about that ivermectin in those studies, it said it was terrible. Johnson & Johnson and Merck sponsored those studies. Like, if you really dig down and look at who actually donated the money to do the studies, it's pharmaceutical. That's why it's so much economics.
It's all a catch thing. Like, I saw so many celebrities, they like, I'm not taking horse medication, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that, and it was just people piling on whatever the narrative that made their people feel better.
But here's the interesting thing.
It's crazy.
Look what the NBA is doing now, though. A lot of those guys are speaking out about the vaccine.
I know they are.
So I'm going to be really curious to see when some of the big stars start saying, we're not going to do this, and they go to play in New York.
Oh, well, I find the following fascinating, too. If you're a political analyst, which I am not, but I would imagine they've done this. The political... the political scientists have had to have done this, where they've broken down all the demographics and all the ethnicities. And I will tell you point blank, I have been told by so many of my African American friends that they're very, very hesitant. Yeah. There's a history in this country of things that have happened to Black Americans with vaccines. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
But what's crazy about it is, like, to hear the narrative as I ingest it from the news sources is that the Republicans, by and large, aren't getting vaccinated, but all the Democrats are doing the right thing and getting vaccinated. There are big swaths of the Democratic contingency, which are, by and large, trying to avoid the vaccination for their own reasons.
Absolutely.
But you don't hear that, you see, and I bet you the irony of the whole thing is, if you, and we'll never have these numbers, but if you could weigh the the voting registration of those who are vaccinated and against those who are not, I am not convinced it's going to fall along party lines.
I don't think so.
It might be almost right down the middle.
I think so. I think so.
It'll fall along other lines. Groups, whether it's religion, whether it's race, whatever it is.
Completely.
But we'll never hear that. See. Because it isn't all Democrats being vaccinated, and it isn't all Republicans not being vaccinated. That's a lie.
That's a complete lie. Well, look at all the BLM protests in New York that were going on about the vaccine. So the BLM groups in New York were protesting the vaccine mandates. Mm-hmm. No media was picking that up. No liberal media was picking that up. Yeah, because it didn't fit the narrative anymore. Like that group didn't fit their narrative anymore.
Yeah,
but they were
it's a shame.
That is a shame. It's a shame that what's going on. Like that's just bullshit. But it is what it is, man.
Yeah, it is what it is. Buddy, I appreciate this.
No, this is fun. Always.
We'll see you in a couple days. We have some other filming gems coming up here.
Looking forward to it, man.
Always a pleasure.
Always, my friend.
All right.
Take care.
All right, folks, we're out.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.